the Armco barrier at Arenberg. Very quickly, a car park emerging in the gravel trap. Now this daunting run down through the Foxhole and on towards Adenauer Forest, where the scenery opens up a little bit. But the track, if anything, narrows, and the racing line very, very tricky to negotiate if you've got traffic to get by. Now, 28 Audi stayed out again. Has the car not come in for a stop?
No.
Wow. So this is on to 22 laps now. 22 laps completed and round for a 23rd lap. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that puts it, therefore, on such a different race tactic to the 911 with which it's been fighting for much of the race. So it's putting a lap on 44, the Landgraf Mercedes, and the Schmicklers.
So Conor De Filippi must be on some kind of fuel save mode as well, although he's opening up the gap from everybody else. So I'm not quite sure how he's doing this. Maybe Montreplast are just supremely confident that the car can do a 9-lap stint. I wasn't aware that a GT3 car could do that sort of distance, but they're rolling the dice here.
Now, I see a few little drops of rain on the screen, but it might just be little dents in the PLOS strip on the screen of the 925 class leading KTM Crossbow. No, I think we're getting a bit of moisture, and we had a car off at the side of the circuit, and these slow sections, yes, it's starting to rain at the back end of the circuit, so the big clouds I saw have started to release a bit of moisture. Maybe that's why that car is off at the edge of the track. And meanwhile, coming into the pits is the Porsche 940. Has been running very, very strongly, much of the race second in the Cup 3 class. And Fabian Schiller, we think, about to hand over to Adam Osieka. So let's keep an eye on what's happening at the back of the circuit. But one car off in the rain normally precludes a whole load of others going off as well. So around the stadium part of the circuit, the Grand Prix part, it is dry as 940 presses on in the lead of its class. Sorry, yes, lead of the Cup 3 class. In 22nd position overall. This is one of the cars that's been monstered and passed by that 55 Renault RS01 as that works its way into the top 20.
By the way, Klaus Bachler also stayed out, as did Frank Stippler. So they are happy to push the Porsche and the Audi respectively for a 9th lap too.
Oh dear, one of the runners in Cup 2 just pulled off. That's Willie Moore, Bill Cameron, British couple of drivers, and rejoined the circuit. Front splitter on the left-hand side and front bodywork tattered, so contact with someone or something, but keeping going. But that's a setback into the final hour of this 4-hour race. But that's a long way round to the end of the lap to get that taped up.
4th place in class behind the number 1 car. Let's just have a look to see what happened. Was there? Oh, the damage was already there.
It's crabbing rather badly.
Very much so. And
I'm afraid that front suspension is damaged, front left-hand corner.
Yes. And there's damage to the rear left as well, isn't there? That's what's sending it out of alignment. So I think it's clonked the barrier, both front left and rear left. I'm not sure whether it looped around and then clobbered the barrier, almost facing the wrong way to traffic, but that rear left wheel is also out of alignment.
Yeah, and the left rear bodywork is tattered. It's definitely, yes, as you said.
A double impact, or perhaps a full-on side impact, which has accounted for both wheels on that left-hand side of the car. They're both still attached, but pointing in very different directions from how they were set up at the start of the race. Thankfully, it's happened on the Grand Prix circuit, so you can dart back in with 3-wheel steering on that car, I reckon.
I'm not sure it's something that's going to catch on, Johnny.
Doing a tremendous job to control it down pit road, and everyone in the pit lane will need to be aware that this man doesn't necessarily have full control of his Porsche, leaving a solid black line from rubber and leaking coolant down pit road. Now safely back with the team, and I think they may just call that a day, sadly, with 45 minutes to go. There's the 7 car.
A rare sight. We've scarcely seen it's run its own race.
Yeah. And on course for a top 5, is it not?
Yeah, it is. And just to point out, the other car was 4th in class, the 111 in the Cup 2 class, before that little tumble for whether Moore or Cameron were at the wheel.
Yeah, shame.
7 Mercedes crew this week. Oh, I love the livery on this car. It's the very darkest, but it's black fading to the very darkest blue, fading into effectively turquoisey blue down at the bottom of the car and round the grille. Yeah, what do you think, Johnny? Do you like
no, very, very smart indeed. Two-tone blue seems to work, regardless of whether it's the Falcon type or whether it's the darker with the sort of sky blue. I like the red trim on the front wheels, the yellow trim on the rear wheels as well. And the 7 car back to 5th place, was briefly 4th because of the early stop. Well, I say early stop, it's kind of on-schedule stop for the 911, and everybody else has stopped out of sync. The 7 car's done an 8-lap stint. Unbelievably, the 28, the 4 and the 15 cars are on their 9th lap now. They have to surely stop at the end of lap 23 to leave just a 5-lap dash to the finish or thereabouts.
Problems for 533. Dale Lomas, Lucien Gavry in their Toyota GT86. Back on the circuit, can't see any damage, but Miltech Sport car clearly just done something it wasn't supposed to be doing, but back into the race it goes.
That's the 2nd placed Cup 4 car, a class that's led by car number 535. So 535 being the Toyota Swiss racing team that currently lead Cup 4. Manuel Amweg and Frederick Yerli, the drivers.
Well, out front, the advantage has crept out. Really strong stint from Conor De Filippi. He's now 12.5 seconds clear of Klaus Bachler in the chasing Porsche. It seems the further into the stint they go, the better the Audi becomes. We saw early on that the Porsche seemed to handle much better, particularly in the tighter corners of the Grand Prix circuit, but maybe as the fuel load comes off, that 28 Audi gets better and better. So 12.5 seconds clear. A further 8 seconds back to number 15 Audi of Frank Stippler. So this race has really turned around, but has it been a masterstroke from the 911 Porsche crew from Anti Racing with that early pit stop? They're out on fresh rubber, while the rubber on their rivals is getting older and older, but they will be coming in for fresh rubber very soon indeed. And of course they won't be going out with as much fuel on board as the 911 did when it went back out to the circuit. So in theory can put in some really quick laps.
True. Although after a 9-lap stint, you do have to stay in the pit lane for even longer now, as the 44 Mercedes is able to duck by the Get Speed Performance Porsche. Car 44 running 13th at the moment.
In fact, of course, I just want to clarify something I might have made things cloudy. Of course, when the cars come out from their pit stop, they have the same amount of fuel on board as the race leading, as the 911, won't they? They've got to have enough to go that remaining distance to the end of the race. But it's up to the teams to do the calculations.
Yeah,
that's a guess.
The advantage of doing it this way, I suppose, is that the leading cars are running for longer with less fuel on board, exactly. So they're running for a longer distance at lighter. But it's just a question of whether the cars can make the distance. I'm not aware of any yellows out at the moment.
15 into the pits. Frank Stimpler has blinked, but
so hopefully the 4 has already come in, and the 28.
Yeah, we'll have to wait until the camera shot widens out. They've caught the car that came in from 3rd place, the Phoenix Racing Audi that started on the outside the front row. The 28 is in position. Look further down the pits. Can we see the Falcon Porsche? I think I can see it. Oh no, that stops further behind.
The other direction,
yeah. Swing round, cameraman. No, don't look at that man. He's a mechanic in overalls.
Yes, there is a drama here potentially, but fuel's going in. That's good news.
This is the petrol pump that was the replacement one, we think, or the one that we reckon gave trouble to the Land Motorsport car on its first pit stop. And seemed to be a bit of a scramble last time around. This time seems much more ordered. Right behind a similar Audi, but with a different paint scheme, is the 15 Phoenix Racing car. And if we can look further back up the pit lane, we ought to see the Falcon Motorsport number 4 Porsche that Klaus Bechler was giving chase in and seemed to be making huge amount of ground and looked at one point, so the next lap would be the one he took the lead, but then the gap went back and back and back as the Audis came on strong, and the Porsches seemed to lose their pace towards the end of their stint.
The next question is, where is the 911 Porsche that stopped 2 laps ago, therefore was able to take a shorter pit stop than these 3 cars? And we're keeping an eagle eye on the sector times at the end of S4. It hasn't yet appeared at the end of Sector 4. It probably has in reality, but not on my timing screen. The timing screen tending to be about 45, maybe 50 seconds behind what we're seeing on the live feed. The Phoenix Audi has already been spun round on the dolly jack, so that is in grid formation, pole position, if you like, raring to go.
The Land Audi was flagged when it didn't move. It's the second offering of the lollipop before it went. And he's only just in front of the 4 Porsche, so the 4 Porsche gained a huge amount of time during the pit stop, and then the 15 Audi comes back out in front of a red and white Aston Martin, but that's not in the mix. But that was a real change around, so full marks to the Falcon Motorsport crew. They've elevated their driver by 1 position and put him right on the tail of the Land Motorsport Audi. So don't forget, that had got a dozen seconds clear, so he's lost about 10 seconds during that pit stop. Is that possible? No, I tell you why, because we're comparing it to how it was at the end of the previous lap before they came in. So clearly a very, very good lap from Klaus Bachler before the pit stops.
Peering back in the background to see whether the 911 car was appearing out of Tiergarten. I couldn't see it. It's a very easy car to spot that in its bright yellow and green colours. So are we now down to the 28, the 4 and possibly the 15? Or is it just a 2-horse race now?
Frustration for Klaus Bechler. He's been... No, it's not. It's Martin Ragginger, of course. He's taken over from Bechler. He's got a couple of slower cars in front of him, but not that much slower. Struggling to get past, and just at the start of the previous stint, he's got 117 in front now, and that is really obstructing him after that superb pit stop that gave him a chance to get very close to the Land Motorsport Audi. He's lost probably 2 or 3 seconds getting past those... You can't call them back markers, they're midfield runners, but they're just not quite on his pace. But they blocked him for 2 or 3 corners. Now he's got clear, but again, enormous frustration.
Here's the 911 car exiting the Mercedes arena now, whereas the leading cars are already heading onto the Hatson back. So must be trailing 30, 40 seconds perhaps.
Well, there was the answer. We saw their tactic going out. That was 2 laps ahead, wasn't it?
Yes.
They came in for their pit stop, and they weren't sweet laps in the end. A shorter stint beforehand, and now they have clear track, at least for this point on the circuit. But we're chasing Martin Ragginger. Again, we saw the Porsches so strong in the start of their stints. Don't know what sort of pace. Let's see what pace last time around the 911 did. An 8-minute 6-second lap. That is very quick indeed. That's its second fastest lap of this race, and faster than any of the laps by 28 and 4. 28 leading the race. It's no longer Conor de Filippi. Of course, he's handed that Audi over to Eduardo No, sorry, he hasn't. He's handed it over to Robin Freitz. So Freitz, what can he do? He was very, very quick in that second stint. No reason why he shouldn't be so in the stint number 4, the final stint. Less than, well, just over 35 minutes remaining until the checkered flag will be proffered. And wait for the Dutchman to make a move. But this race that was so close has gone away again. But I think it might close right up all over one more time, because I think we're going to have certain cameo roles. Certainly, Romain Dumas is really flying in that 911, but he lost a lot of time relative to the opposition with that early pit stop.
I think, generally speaking, Robin Freitz has the measure of Martin Ragginger, and he's quicker than Nikolai Moller-Madsen, generally speaking. As you say, Dumas now back at the wheel of the 911 car, but unfortunately for Dumas and Pilet, they are very much 4th now of that 4-car battle at the head of the order. A huge amount of time to try and make up, although they pitted a couple of laps early, so they shouldn't have an issue with the amount of fuel still in that car. It's a little bit of a question of where not so much where the checkered flag comes out. If it was a 24-hour race, then that would have an extra say, because the checkered flag just comes out regardless of where cars are placed around the track. But we will be waiting for the leader to cross the line at the end of the 4 hours for this event, and at the moment it's looking like it's going to be Robin Freitz.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was an artificial complexion coming from the fact that Land Motorsport Audi had such a slow first pit stop, lost a lot of time, but the pace that Freitz and de Filippi have shown belie the fact this is a car that hasn't won this year in the VLN, and certainly for Land Motorsport it's looking very strong now. They started the season with a trio of drivers, including de Filippi finishing 3rd, and that's their best result thus far, so things coming good for them in round 6. Is it the end of summer, start of autumn? But it's the start of September, come what may. Mixed conditions, and again we get little flurries of rain around the back of the track. Right now it seems to be dry, but we're getting quite a lot of break-up on some of the onboard laps now, which is a shame, because it's a great chance to see not only the overtaking and the wonderful contours, turns and twists of this circuit, but the overtaking manoeuvres and how the drivers give each other as much space as they can, but still have that sort of killer instinct to go up the inside wherever possible. But over 4 hours, you want to be sure you can get your car to the finish, or even just as far as the next pit stop to hand over to your teammate. We want to see the 911, and it's just come flashing past the camera car. We were riding on board with Fabian Schiller in his Porsche, but the 911 Porsche, the Manti Racing Porsche that's so quick in the hands of Romain Dumas, is on a chase. Flew past, took another back marker in the blink of an eye. That was the Opel Manta 617. But Romain Dumas, no time to stop and look at the scenery, absolutely flying past, half a way around the lap. But we think he lost a fair bit of ground over 28 Audi, the 4 Porsche and the 15 Audi. Certainly after they came out of their pit stops, had lost about the first 5 corners of the circuit.
Yeah,
Gap.
at least. Yeah, I think it was probably
about
more, 30
actually,
seconds or
yeah.
so, or a little more than that. And now, with the benefit of hindsight, the strategy that the 911 car employed and the team employed seems a little strange, and don't often say that about Manti.
You don't. I mean, to be 1 lap out is one thing, but 2 laps away from the general mix of the front runners, it's they're clearly either went on a weather forecast that there'll be an enormous downpour or something, they'll be able to react to it. Hold on, looking down at the pit lane, we're looking at fuel reset, it said on a board, but that could just be the flip side of the board. But we're expecting someone in, but all the front runners have been in for their 3rd pit stop.
They have.
With the it could be the Porsche number 12, also from Manti Racing.
Yes.
Who's that waiting to take over? Is that? Well, it should be. We started with Lars Kern, and it should be also close. Not sure it is. It looks like it says Muller on helmet.
Okay.
Of course, we've got Alexander Muller, but he was in the number 14 Ferrari, and that's not still racing. Here comes a Porsche into the pit lane. So we'll do our calculations as to who that might be.
That's the 59 car.
Ah, that's the other Manti Racing car.
Yes.
Oh, yes, of course.
Sven Muller.
Sven,
it will be.
yes.
To take
they've really fallen from the mix. They were running in 6th place.
Yes.
They were the car that stayed out each time. Be very late in.
They are a Pro-Am driver lineup,
Yep.
with Sven definitely the Pro, and Steve Smith and Randy Walls the Am side of things. So it's a kind of subclass within SP9, not displayed differently on many of the timing screens we have here, but you are basically rating the Pro-Am, the other Pro-Am cars in SP9.
Well, Steve Smith just climbed out. As we said, the real pro, but Randy, who's getting back on, was that Randy Walls climbing on? No, it was Muller, wasn't it? Of course, we saw Muller on his helmet. He'll take it through to the finish. He's only got half an hour of this race remaining, so he may be able to pick up a place. He's quite a lot behind the 44 Schmickler Landgraf Motorsport Mercedes, so probably not. Precisely half an hour until the checkered flag comes out. Conor De Filippi leading by 10 seconds. Stippler is another 12 seconds further back in 3rd place overall. And Romain Dumas giving chase, setting up some really, really quick laps, waiting for him to complete the lap. We'll find out how the gaps are shaping up.
So leaders back across the line. This will be the end of the first lap of the final stint, and I'm expecting this to be a 5-lap stint effectively, so a real dash to the flag now. Brand new Michelin rubber for the Lant Motorsport Audi, and just a little bit of fuel. We know it can do 9 laps if required. I wonder whether there was just a bit of fuel saving necessary from Conor De Filippi, but he was certainly not hanging around.
And we've got a slow car on the circuit with a mere 20 cars gathered behind it down the straight. As they run back, we can tell you it's a black car with yellow wing mirrors. We can tell you no more. That's all we can see behind the Mercedes
Cayman, I think.
Rescue vehicle. Well, that doesn't narrow it down much, does it, Johnny?
No, and it's a safe bet as well, as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. And now the grouping have been flagged past. Some of them are very slow to respond, but in that grouping, it does include the 911, and that has absolutely costed a huge amount, because we know the 3 cars in front, the 28 Audi, the 4 Porsche and the 15 Audi, are at racing speed, and he's been bottled up in that group of 20 cars, not able to overtake, and some of the others were very slow to react to that. So I'm afraid it's not a 4-horse race, it's a 3-horse race, and it definitely is advantage to the 28 Land Motorsport Audi. Lights are blazing, getting darker down in the dips. The shade is now casting its way across the circuit, even though it's 3:30 at the Nürburgring. But then the Phoenix Racing Audi came terribly, terribly close to clattering a back marker. who else is caught in that grouping. It doesn't matter in terms of the lead battle. It's really taken the 911 out of the mix absolutely entirely. And I know that was a really quick lap up to that point from Romain Dumas. His last lap was an 8-minute 6-second lap. That is very quick indeed. He must have lost 30 seconds, if not more, behind that rescue vehicle.
Although, I have to say, I don't think much better than fourth place was in the offing anyway. I don't think he was ever going to reel in the top three. So
I just wanted to see how good his next lap was.
Yeah,
8:06, was he going to go to the 8:05? So was that as good as it got? But sadly, it turned into as bad as it could possibly get.
Yeah,
in terms of race pace.
We will be denied his ultimate speed, won't we, with all the chains unleashed from Romain Dumas. He'll be even more revved up now, though. Hopefully the red mist will not descend. He's a consummate professional, though, so he'll stay with the thoughts contained.
OK, well, let's give you the gaps between first and second. It's 6.7 seconds between De Filippi and Klaus Bachler. So the Land Motorsport Audi ahead of the Falco Motorsport Porsche, and then another, let's do the sums, another just under 2.9 seconds back to Frank Stippler in the Audi. The Audi we saw nearly clatter against the back marker, against the...
It was a Seat,
which one it was. Yeah, it was a Seat. Purple and silver Seat. Yeah. So the 911 hugely delayed. It hasn't completed, well, the timing screen hasn't completed its lap for him, but certainly on the Grand Prix loop, we have Romain Dumas pressing on very hard indeed, but that was a big blow to their chances. But it was what happened before their pit stop. Well, after their pit stop, they were the first to make their final pit stop, 2 laps ahead of the opposition, and by the time they'd all come out of the pits, it looked like about a 30-second loss of time through that sequence for them. Of course, you couldn't compare how good its pit stop was. We don't have the pit stop time. The other 3 all came in together, so we can see who gained and who lost. But sadly for the 911 crew, the Mante Racing crew that's taken 2 wins from 5, can't see it making it 3 wins from 6.
No, it does seem to be unlikely, as just keeping an eye on the 2 Mercedes that are running 5th and 6th at the moment. I think the margin is actually not too large, 25 seconds, and Eduardo Mortaro taking chunks out of whoever's at the wheel of the number 7 car right now.
Yes, huge differences in times, but we had the 7 car quite comfortably ahead, so it shows Johan Adeletco, the Muka Motorsport Mercedes, Ian Mortara are really coming on strong towards the end of the race, but they had different pit stops on different laps. That's slightly confusing. What we call the City-ish.
Yeah, a 10-minute lap actually for the 26 car, because that included a pit stop, and a quick one at that. So we'll wait and see whether that develops into anything for a battle for 5th position between the 2 front-engine cars, the elongated bonnet on the AMG with the snarling grille, and a variety of different livery being offered by the various AMG in action this weekend. Great to have a couple of GT4s in the field as well. There's the number 12 car with surely its last stop of the race, and we know the 12's been well off kilter, doing generally 8 lap stints rather than 7, and that's another Pro-Am car offered by Manthey, so it was never going to trouble the overall top 3 unless we had a rather bizarre race. But Manthey putting all of their eggs within the Pro basket with the 911 car, but it looks like 4th place is the best that Dumas and Pilet can hope for at this stage. 25 minutes to go.
Wow, it's gone in a flash. This was a race where everything concertinaed up just before the 3rd round of pit stops. We had the top 4 cars covered by 2.2 seconds, and now it's space right out again, sitting on a lead of about 6.5 seconds or so. Robin Freitz in the number 28 Audi for Monteplas by Land Motorsport, and just seems to have the pace, waiting for the next sector to be completed to see if he's pulling away or if Klaus Bachler is giving chase. Sorry, Martin Reckington has taken over from Klaus Bachler in the number 4 Falco Motorsport Porsche. What is the interval difference? What is the pace difference? Johnny's looking at his screen from time to time to look at the intervals. Are they going out? Are they coming down? Because live timing is much... what's the gap first and second? It's actually going in the favour of the 28 Audi. It is pulling clear. And again, we've seen the Audis coming strong towards the end of their stint. 23 minutes remaining till the checkered flag can come out and see daylight. So things looking very, very good indeed for the Monteplas by Land Motorsport crew.
Really nice bit of sunshine now at the Mercedes Arena, although here at Tiergarten it looks a little bit dull. This, I'm reckoning, is the M235i leader. It's been car 691 for a good period of time now, and still looks to be 691 out front for Bonk Motorsport. Let's just check on the Cup 5 standings. 691 leads from 694 and 679. With the treble six car in fourth.
Yeah, looking immaculate, the 691. It's black livery with those three colours, the two blues and the red stripe up over the roof. BMW Motorsport colours. And Michael Schrey will be very, very happy indeed. H&R sponsorship just looks a dream. It actually looks like it's on its opening lap. So we've had a little bit of wet weather, a lot of racing, but every body panel smooth and shiny, just how it left the garage. So great afternoon for the crew in VLN number 6. Still waiting for the intervals on the screen. Land Motorsport Audi coming into shot. It's got a Porsche tucked in behind, but that is not one from the lead battle. It's one that's decided to get right on its tail. They've just given it a pass. That's
Sven Muller, isn't it, in the 59 that just clambered on board. So we'd expect.
Yes, exactly. They're a lap down, so he's probably just overtaken it. Sven last time around. Oh no, sorry. Waiting for him to complete that lap. The laps here are so long, you get quite confused. You're convinced they've done a lap since their out lap, but they're still on it.
Yes.
Now we have a change behind because the Stippler Audi has gone ahead, gone back with Nikolai Moller-Madsen now at the wheel, has gone into second place past Martin Rackinger. So change, it's Audi, Porsche. Well. And again, the Audi's coming on strong as their stints continue.
Yeah. Late in the day then. Over the line goes the Robin Freins driven Land Motorsport Audi. There it is at the Mercedes Arena. Second position, as you say now, the number 15 Nikolai Moller-Madsen driven Audi R8 LMS with the 5.2 litre V10 engine, and then it's the very much rear engined Martin Rackinger driven Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. Big gap back then to the delayed Roman Dumas. He was caught up in that recovery work on the Dottinger Höhe, couldn't get by. A great gaggle of touring cars. Everyone needed to stay in the same order under yellow flags. And I'm still intrigued by this Mercedes versus Mercedes battle for 5th and 6th positions, because again, quite a bit of time lost by the number 7 Black Falcon car on this lap compared to number 26 driven by Mortara.
And just to give you an idea how much time was lost by Roman Dumas when he crossed the start-finish line last time around. He was only 7 seconds under 2 minutes in arrears. He lost way more time than we thought. We didn't catch the start of that bunch of cars stuck behind a safety vehicle, but what we could see, he was about 20th in that grouping when we saw it. Pressing on now, he's got nothing to lose, but you know, maybe he should just take the points from 4th place in class. He's so far behind the front three, but now for once we pick him up and he's got clear tracks to go and play on, but he'll be able to look at the clouds around the circuit, see if we've got any more rain due. 20 minutes until the checkered flag, but most of the circuit, he's just come up to complete another lap, is in full sunshine, albeit with a bit more shade coming in the trees at the lower parts of the circuit out around the back, and waiting for time interval for him to come up on screen. But second place now, number 15 Audi, 11 seconds down on the race leading Robin Freins' Audi, the number 28 from Land Motorsport, and Rackinger just over half a second down in 3rd place. So it's 28 Audi, 15 Audi, 4 Audi, and then sadly the Manti Racing 911 Porsche is falling way back due to a number of circumstances. One circumstance and one simply whatever happened by coming in 2 laps ahead of the rest for the final pit stop.
The difference between Rackinger and Dumas now, I reckon, is 1 minute and 40 seconds.
Well, the last lap for Dumas was a 9 minute, no, waiting for it to come up. He lost more than a minute on the previous lap.
Last lap was an 8:06.3.
No, the last one for Dumas was, I've just got on my screen, a 9 minute 16.
Yes.
That was including the traffic, and then...
Correct.
Oh, you've already gone on to the next lap, have you?
Yeah.
Because he did an 8:06, a 9 minute whatever, and then an 8:06.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
but the difference between race leader and Dumas now is 1 minute and 52 seconds.
Okay, stayed at that.
So that makes it 1 minute and 40 between him and Martin Rackinger. So yeah, it's a question of just sitting firm, sadly, for Roman Dumas and Patrick Pilet. They've worked incredibly hard. They've at times led the race, and it's been frenetic stuff. Of course, there was that image of the Dayglow yellow and green Porsche leading down the Dottinger Höhe with then Conor De Filippi right on his boot lid, slipstreaming him and getting ahead, wasn't it?
What we saw both with the Phoenix and the Land Motorsport Audis down that straight from Dottinger Höhe, they had straight line advantage over the Porsche.
Yeah.
Time and again they could haul it in, get past, then they get reeled in again through the first 6 or 7 corners before the Grand Prix circuit was visited, and then they do it all over again.
695 is another one of the Cup 5 cars. Let's just see how that's doing in class. It's a late pit stop for 695 though, and that car's 6th place behind the 669 car and the treble 6 machine. Thomas Jaeger dark blue car sent back on its way again.
That wasn't a regular pit stop then,
no.
Was it? That was a come and talk to the crew pit stop. Lonely out there, come and talk to your crew in the pit lane. Get back out on the track, and so they have. 101 has been going pretty well through the race, but right now nobody can hold a candle to the Land Motorsport crew. 11 seconds clear for Robin Freins, and this is a car that could have been a whole lot further clear. Such has been their performance in VLN 6, but sadly a very slow pit stop affected their chances, but their speed on the track between the pairing of Conor De Filippi and Robin Freins has never been in question. Their best laps, not the fastest lap of the race, that's still held by it was Frank Stifler at the wheel at the time of the 15 Audi in that opening stint. 8-minute 3.582 second lap, so 2.5 seconds quicker than the best achieved by the race leader, but there's no doubting that the 28 Audi has got the legs. Maybe a better balanced driver pairing as well, De Filippi and Freins. No disrespect to Nikolai Moller-Madsen, but he's got fewer years behind the wheel.
So this is lap
of competition.
This is lap 26. We'll have the completion of this 27 and then possibly 28 as the Ferrari 458 is now hitting drama off on the grass on the Grand Prix circuit. And this car, one of the SP8 runners, is back onto the island, thankfully. But
so frustrating. You've done nearly 3 and 3/4 hours racing. You put it off the circuit, then you can't get gear. You're sitting straddling the grass verge and the curb, and you get going again. But that's fine. Didn't hit the barriers, but the scare you don't need late in the race.
And I have that car down as leading its class as well. 18th position overall. Thankfully, the next car on the road is 42nd overall. So despite a little oopsie like that, shouldn't lose the lead of the class. But
well, we've got a little battle on screen at the moment. It's our charging 55, the Renault RS01 that went down to, we think, about 116th, 120th position. It's now fighting very hard indeed to get up to 18th place, and the car ahead is right ahead of it, which is one of the 2 Fricadelli Racing Porsches, number 30, Klaus Abelin, Sabine Schmitz and Andreas Ziegler. And certainly the RS01 has the pace to get past, to pick up a position or 2. What's lying up ahead? Will it be able to catch the KTM Crossbows? Right there, the next car's up the track, the 926. Then that 139 Ferrari we saw straddling the curbs, and then the 925, 15th place overall, the Stuck Brothers, KTM Crossbows. Those are all the targets, because in terms of lap speed, 55 car can take 10, 15, 20 seconds out of all of those cars ahead of him, so it could get up to 15th place, which would be a mere advance of 100 positions or so.
Yeah, should not be ignored. It's been an entertaining run for the 55 car, and that can often be the result after real problems on just the opening lap, a lap that took in the end double the amount of time it should have done, 19 minutes or thereabouts. Sven Muller still really troubling Robin Freins here, and Muller well in the wheel tracks of the Land Motorsport Audi. The Audi darts to the right.
So bright, he's got them on full beam, full everything, but don't forget the 59 Porsche is a lap down in 12th place overall. Freins, I don't think, is the sort of driver who'd be put off by this, but many another driver would be going, good grief, just stop it, you're right on my tail, and I'm going to make a mistake because I'm getting crossed by you being there. But in fact, I think Freins is just starting to wind it up a little bit. I think what happened, he fell back into his grasp. I think he maybe lost out slightly in traffic, because certainly there was more of a gap back to Sven Muller, who was vaulting the curbs at Tiergarten. He's just enjoying hanging with the leader. His car's a lap down, but if he can stay in all the pictures at the end, I suppose that's one thing. It's also showing his AM teammates, what the car can do, so they feel that they are definitely getting in a car of top performance potential with this Randy Walls in inverted commas and Steve Smith in inverted commas. Down to turn 1, hit right on the tail of the race leader. Was that a good lap for the race leader? Yes. It was the fastest lap that car has done all race. 8 minutes 6.255. So Robin Fry's really, really winding it up. And he'll be
special stuff.
Clear last time of the Phoenix Racing Audi, waiting for that to go through another lap.
And the other thing that may happen on this lap is that the two Mercedes running 5th and 6th on the road could well switch positions. Another 5 seconds found by Eduardo Mortara on either Abdulaziz Al-Faisal or Eric Johansson piloting the Black Falcon Mercedes. And I would think that those two cars, the two-tone blue version up against the pale pink number 26 car, they may well switch positions by the end of this lap.
Well, I think one thing we know is that definitely Adam Christodoulou is not at the wheel of the number 7 Black Falcon Mercedes, because he would be matching the pace or better of Eduardo Mortara, who we think is the driver on board 26 in his final stint of the race. And all eyes are out on Sven Muller. He's a lap down in 12th place overall. He's all over the tail of Robin Frijns, who must be cursing every Dutch oath he knows as they go through Hatzenbach out onto the back of the big majesty of the Grand Prix loop. The old Grand Prix loop, the pre-1977 loop, if you will. Whereas the 911 from Manti Racing, that was right in the mix of the first 3 quarters of the race, racing fairly much all on its own, but the fact he's now the whole Grand Prix loop that we use, plus a little bit of the Nordschleife behind, just shows how far he's fallen. Is he going to be 2 minutes down, waiting for the timing screen to see where he is after 26 laps? 19 seconds cover 28, 15 and 4, but then the 911 coming through, and they're turning the page on the calendar, and they get to where he is, how far behind. But sadly, this is a car in the mix, really strong driver lineup, Patrick Pilet and Romain Dumas, but the race went away from them. And then to have salt rubbed into the wounds, they had a big delay behind a safety car, stuck at the behind a pack of cars, couldn't overtake, and must have just thought, well, all those efforts of the first 3.5 hours out the window.
Nearly 2 minutes now behind Robin Frijns, so despite Romain Dumas' best efforts to bring that gap down, it's actually extended by a couple of seconds. Which order do the Mercedes come through, though, towards the end of this lap? Will it be Mortara ahead of the number 7 car? Not quite. Well, Sector 4 sees them separated by about 2 seconds. Very narrow indeed. And if the pale pink car can get a good run on the Black Falcon Mercedes down the Dottinger Hurt, those places will be reversed, I'm sure. Car 62 heading now through the real bumpy stuff on towards Adenauer Forst into the slight clearing. Good spectator area if you find the banking up to the left there. There's a number of people still hanging around to see the final 10 minutes of this race. Race leaders have gone on to lap 27, by the way. As we'll see, there's the potential change.
Well, not quite yet, but coming through Tiergarten, the pink Mercedes is about 2 seconds down on the Black Falcon Mercedes. Well, it's just a question of the next handful of corners one feels. Again, faster speed out of Tiergarten, greater acceleration. And Eduardo Mortara really hunting down the 7 Black Falcon Mercedes. It's 2 to 3 seconds between them there, but the momentum you could see coming up the final hill at the end of the lap just showed the speed that the chasing car is carrying. So Muka Motorsport will prevail over Black Falcon, but great to have these mixes. So we got Audi, Porsche, Mercedes, then the best place BMW at number 100, coming around in 7th place over. So let me go back to the world of Porsches.
So the BWT pink Mercedes, very close indeed here, and being hustled around the Grand Prix circuit at the Nürburgring, keeping a wide route through the hairpin, which is the shortened version of the Grand Prix track, now towards the Vorsteiner corner, and then Ad van Bogen to be next negotiated. So they'll do the remainder of this lap, will the leaders, and one more by my reckoning, so that will make it a 28 lap race. Down into the braking area for the Vidal chicane. They're on the faster configuration of the chicane rather than the tight and twisty section that is used at times by DTM use the tight and twisty chicane.
The incident magnet.
Often, yes. got to thread yourself through a couple of floppy marker boards as well that often go for a Burton on the first lap, as the Renault number 55 has a sneaky look up the inside there of the Pro Fricadelli car, wasn't it? Yes.
It was, and they sewed it into the final 10 minutes of the race, and we so nearly had two cars clattering off. It was so nearly contact between them, but 55 has its tail up. The dander is there. Look, a long shot back down the straight, trying to pick it out, still behind that Porsche as they go to the bottom of the dip. Marshall's waving their flags incredibly vigorously, faster car coming through, but now the move has been pulled off. The Renault has achieved it. He's got another car right under his tail. Just to confuse matters, I think that's the number 12 Manti Racing Porsche getting onto his tail. That is a good lap or two ahead, and having just hunted down one Porsche, just put a Clio between himself and the chasing one. I sense a little puff of smoke there, heavy braking into Tiergarten, and the RS01 is being poured around the circuit. It's being absolutely brilliantly driven at this stage in the race. Such a wieldy, good-looking racing car, but yes, he's picked off the Fricadelli car, that much is for sure. Now, just giving you some timing intervals. At the end of the previous lap, Robin Freitz was ahead of Nikolai Moller-Madsen in the Audi battle for the lead by just under 9 seconds. I'll let you know how it hangs out at the end of this lap, but with 7 minutes remaining on the clock, you can't see the order changing. It is going to be the 28 Land Motorsport Audi ahead of the 15 Phoenix one that started from the second position on the grid, whereas the 28 was on row number 4. So it shows what a good race they had, from 8th on the grid up to the lead of the race, and had it not been for the slow first pit stop, they'd have got there sooner. But for one point in the race, Johnny, we thought the top 4 cars covered by 2 and a bit seconds. It was looking really good, but the overall pace of the 28 just kept on coming through stint 3 and stint 4, and that is why they find themselves clear. And when the timing screens flip over one more time, I think they're going to have more than 10. So, and the 55 goes for a spin, having just picked off the, what was that, a minute ago? Hunted down the 30 Fricadelli Porsche and overcooked it. My fault, I said beautifully driven.
Well, it wasn't until that point, and then it's had a bit of
too much beauty.
Yes, perhaps. Trying to see too much of the beautiful circuit. Now, what happened out of the hairpin at the top of the hill, down towards the Warsteiner S, and did the car loop around? Oh, a bit too much curb on the left-hand element of the Warsteiner corner, and bounces around. Thankfully, no gravel trap there, just an extra bit of tarmac, and the car able to stop very quickly. Finds a forward gear quickly as well, so clearly dipped the clutch nice and early so the car didn't stall, and we've got a crabbing BMW. Yeah, coming in super sideways. Like he looks so he's setting it up for a bit of drifting, but he's just drifting without him wanting to as he gets up to Tiergarten. Phoenix car nearly wipes the BMW out. Car in second place did not want to come off the power. He's probably about 10 seconds down, didn't want to make it 12 or 14 seconds, but really could have easily gone clattering into the barriers. But luckily, the driver of that tattered, battered BMW somehow managed to hug the right-hand side of the circuit, despite his car wanting to go across into the middle of the track ahead of him. So for Nikolai Moller-Madsen, that was a scary moment, but for race leader Robin Freitz, the clock is ticking down, 5 minutes remaining. So 4 hours are complete. This will be the final lap by my reckoning. Takes you 8 minutes there or thereabouts to get round, and only 5 minutes on the clock when this lap was started. So down towards the hairpin, there's a back marker to be mindful of, one of many Porsche Caymans, this the 977 car. Just give you an update on how that machine's doing in Cup 3. It is 6th position in class, so a decent run there for 977. The entry from Fan Club Matol Racing. What happens, Johnny, when your car gets lighter? It gets quicker. Last lap for race leader Robin Freitz, fastest lap of the race, 8 minutes 3.5 seconds, just pipping the best lap set earlier in the race by the car that's giving chase, Frank Stippler, but Stippler's car now in the hands of Nikolai Moller-Madsen, the Phoenix Racing Audi, just waiting for the timing interval to come up, but I think he's over 10 seconds down. Of course, he had that big scare. Oh, the filler cap is falling off the side of our race leader. It's hanging on by a wire. So it is. Don't you hate it when you leave a petrol station like that? Just forget to do the sides up in your car. But 911, number 911 still going very well, still lapping at a great speed. Yeah, he's actually catching the number 4 Falco Motorsport Porsche, but he had a deficit of about 1 minute 40 seconds, so it matters not how hard Romain Dupresses on. Dumas comes through
the final sweep of corners onto the start-finish straight. So that's lap 27 completed for him. Gap between first and second between Freitz and Nikolai Moller-Madsen, 13.5 seconds. And it's a further 20 seconds back to Martin Ragginger in the 4 Porsche, and waiting 911 just completes his 27th lap. He will be another minute and a half further back, I would think. But going very well, and it might be a case of what could have been. His last few laps have been very, very tidy for Romain Dumas.
Still waiting for the order of the 2 Mercedes AMGs at the end of Sector 4. Now, catching is an easy thing to do for Eduardo Mortara on the Dottinger Höhe, but then once you go onto the Nordschleife, very tricky to get by, despite him able to take about 4 or 5 seconds out of the number 7 Black Falcon Mercedes. Virtually every sector he was taking 4 or 5 seconds out.
He's got to be passed already, one really feels, unless he's come unstuck going past. Such was his performance advantage. 13 seconds a lap faster last time around. Yeah,
but it's, as I say, a question of actually finding your opportunity on the Nordschleife. Might have to wait till the Dottinger Höhe. Yeah, still in the same order, but they're separated by about half a second. He just cannot find a way by. I think this time onto the main straight, Mortara will seize the opportunity. And of course, they, at the end of this run down that long straight, will have one more lap.
Yeah,
very, very slow for car 62 here.
Yes, I fancied from a side shot as though there was a problem for that car, and this is the car that was running peerlessly up inside the top tail of the top 10, leading SP7 class by a country kilometre, but coming in not in the way they wanted to end the race. Do hope there's enough fuel on board.
Well, that's the other thought, yeah, because 62 has been within the top 10 for quite a decent period of the race.
Fallen back to 12th place last time around, and I dare say, oh, well, it's still the Black Falcon Mercedes. There's the answer to our question. About 2 seconds separating them, but also about 3 BMWs as they go down to turn 1. And Mortara will not hang on in the Muka Motorsport Mercedes, up the inside of the 666 BMW in the Cup class from the Hona Racing entry. That keeps out of his way, but still the Black Falcon entry, number 7, is the better placed of the Mercedes AMGs.
There's the 4th placed Cup 5 car, although 679's right with him, so that's the battle of the 3rd position, and treble 6 may be about to sneak onto the podium, as Thomas Jaeger's car is just about level with 679, and 679, having been hanging on to that 3rd place, does not want to give in easily. They go on to their final lap, and it's going to be a ding-dong scrap this for the final step of the podium in Cup 5. We said this was the thing to look forward to 4 hours ago, and these cars separated by less than a car length for one more time around. The class is led by...
It's written into their rules. You must
did.
stay close to all rivals, and they've done precisely that.
The class is led by 691, who, by M235i standards, has checked out. Here comes 679 round the outside, surely not too abreast through the chicane. No.
Doesn't want to make the move yet. There are another 7 seconds on the clock until 4 hours are complete, but of course they have to finish this lap, so they go out towards Hatzenbach and beyond. Which one will return ahead? Your guess is as good as mine. Who's going to come to the finish first overall, barring a meteor strike or some other disaster? It's going to be the number 28 Audi, Conor De Filippi, sharing with Robin Freitz. That super fast lap last time around, just rubbing the noses of the opposition in it. 13.5 seconds down was Nikolai Moller-Madsen in the number 15 Audi. So it's Audi versus Audi at the front of the race, but really the tide has flowed the way of the 28 crew Motoplus by Land Motorsport, all under control.
Damaged and then fixed GT8 just creeping through shot, and another damaged car, this time Toyota GT86 number 292, carrying front left damage. It looks like it's clonked a barrier. 292 is
Subaru.
Oh, it's not a, you're right, it's the BRZ.
But hey,
looks like GT86 from the front. You can tell it's been a long...
standing next to it.
It's been a long race when you can't then identify Toyotas from Subarus. No. Apologies for that.
Same body shape, so there we go. Quite happy with that. So, waiting for our race leader to come through. The clock has ticked past the 4-hour mark. Our little countdown clock has disappeared. No longer there for us to deal in seconds, and in fact seconds don't need to really be dealt with, because Robin Freitz in the 28 Audi, 13.5 seconds clear at the start of the final lap. another 18 seconds back to Klaus Bachler. Sorry, to Martin Ragginger, who does the second stint. And we've still got pit callers at the after the 4-hour mark.
Yes,
we see a damaged car.
Well, these guys potentially factored in a race distance to the 4-hour marker and thought, we haven't got enough fuel in it, surely. Are they scrabbling around for fuel? Here come the leaders anyway, out of the corner that takes them onto the Dottinger Höhe. Still Sven Muller sticking with Robin Freins. Tremendous effort. And then between two Clios, a moving chicane there for the Lant Motorsport car. Throwing caution to the wind is Robin Freins. He wants to win this race versus Sven Muller, doesn't he, for bragging rights, I reckon. Flashing of the headlights to warn the distant traffic that he'll be with them by Tiergarten through Antonius Bucher, the left-hand kink, and then towards the chicane, which is ultra fast. A dab of the brakes, no, surely more than that, with two cars just up ahead. Doesn't want to get too close to those guys. Coming out of the final corner then, and the first win of the year in VLN proper, despite taking victory in the Nürburgring 24 hours as Lat Motorsport did. This is their first victory in the VLN races, and the 6th event of the year goes the way of the Monteplast sponsored Lant Motorsport Audi of Robin Freins, who completes the drive, and a splendid performance by Conor De Filippi. Second across the line, Frank Stippler and Nikolai Moller-Madsen in the Phoenix Racing Audi number 15. So Audi from Audi. And then in the number 4 car, the Falcon Racing Porsche of Martin Ragginger, who finishes things off, sharing with Klaus Bachler, yet to appear out of Tiergarten. Here he comes now in that two-tone blue Falcon sponsored and Falcon tired Porsche.
And I just want to wave the flag for Sven Muller, who drove that fantastic final stint, a lap down, having taken over from his teammates. And his best lap was right on the pace. It was about a second away from the fastest lap of the race. And as we saw, with 2 laps, right on the tail of Robin Freins, enjoying his run to the finish, making the most of that. But to Freins and De Filippi, what a fantastic drive for them. Cameo roles from lots of other drivers, Klaus Bachler in particular in the number 4 Porsche. Both of the drivers, the 911, Patrick Pilet and Romain Dumas, Stippler and Nikolai Moller-Madsen there or thereabout. But at one point it looked as though it was the Phoenix 15 Audi against the 911 Manthey Racing Porsche, but that was without the problem for the 28 Lant Motorsport Audi. What an exemplary performance from Conor De Filippi and Robin Freins. Still the cars will come in, they'll still be coming in for the next 10 minutes. The first 4 cars have crossed the finish line. We're waiting to see, is it going to be the Black Falcon Motorsport Mercedes, or will it be Muka Motorsport with their pink Mercedes coming through in 5th place overall? But there's some distance further back. They were lapping in their final laps, about 16 seconds off the ultimate pace. But most importantly, Johnny, they were only 2 seconds apart. How are we doing on timing splits for them around?
Yeah, very, very similar on this final circuit. The Mortara car gained a little bit of time through the first sector, but even Stevens through the rest of the lap, that still suggests they're nose to tail.
Just want to correct myself. I said we've had the first 4 finish. Only now does the 911 come through.
Yeah.
And of course, that was a car that started on pole position. You know, was in with a real shout of victory, but shows how much the delay was. They had some through their own loss of pace, and then unfortunately getting stuck behind a safety car. A rescue vehicle lost them a whole lot more.
And interestingly, the 911 car finishing just behind the 997 K3 from Kramer Racing. Still the Mercedes yet to appear at the end of sector 4 on my timing screen. But as I say, the indication is that they're just nose to tail, and you can't easily get Mercedes side by side around the Nordschleife, particularly when it's packed full of traffic. This to determine who will finish 5th and who will finish 6th then, between the dueling AMGs from the last couple of laps. Various class winners filtering across the line. It's still, by the way, the 7 Black Falcon Mercedes that is in front, and they're heading down the Dottinger Höhe now. Meanwhile, after just completing 1 Grand Prix lap as a slow-down affair, the Lant Motorsport Audi is back in the pit lane. Robin Freins about to clamber out, and I'm sure receive warm congratulations from Conor De Filippi. These guys have been unflappable this afternoon. despite lots of racing required. It wasn't a question of them disappearing up the road. Now the place changed finally on the Dottinger Höhe. So Eduardo Mortara managing to do it on the straight, using the slipstream. He's still got traffic to negotiate, including the M6 Evo just ahead in the Schnitzer livery, but it will be the pale pink Mercedes to snatch 5th place at the death. And as I say, they started that final sector, which only takes them 50 seconds, in a different order. So that's changed the final run down the Dottinger Höhe towards Antonius Bucher. And those Mercedes AMGs switch positions. Well done to Eduardo Mortara for sticking with that challenge.
So less than a second between them at the end of the race. Not so far behind them, the number 100 Walkensport Motorsport. BMW coming through in 7th place, been on its own for a lot of the race, didn't have the pace of those Mercedes ahead of them, but suitably clear of the number 12 Mante Racing Porsche that ran in the lead of the race during pit stop sequences and really got out of sync with everybody else. So the 12 will come home in 8th place overall, then waiting for the better placed of the 2 Fricadelli Racing Porsches, and the top 10 should be completed by that 59 car, has been completed by the 59 car, a lap down, with Sven Muller absolutely flying in those final laps to tail the race-winning Robin Freitz pedal Audi over the finish line at the end, having hassled him for 2 laps. Enjoyed it enormously. Good to see at the end of the race the Mercedes GT4 making it to the finish. That's 2 races done for them, having made its debut last time out in VNL5 just 2 weekends ago. So what a great race, but for Conor De Phillippi and Robin Freitz, really, really impressive performance to give the Land Motorsport team its first win of the year. The weather held off. It had a little bit of frisson of excitement added to the race with those little smattering of rain showers early in the first half of the race. But generally since then, other than a few little threatening moments of minor downpour, minor precipitation, hardly downpour, it stayed dry. So the VLN goes from strength to strength, but don't expect a Porsche always to win. This time we've given you 2 Audis in the top 2, then 2 Porsches. So some teams coming forward, others making losing a little bit of ground, but certainly today nobody can have any complaints at all. Monteplas by Land Motorsport, great lineup, great car, and really a great victory for them, Johnny.
Still winners streaming across the line, including the Cup Cross entry, number 925, winning its class from 926. The 2 cars finishing 15th and 16th overall, so very tightly bunched indeed. But the Stuck and Stuck combination finishing off better off than the 926 entry. 924 was 3rd, and the 930 car struggling a little bit in 4th position. Aston Martin crossing the line as well. That's one of the SP10 machines.
The 62, which was the dominant car in 12th place overall, dominant in SP7, is coming home with the front right corner absolutely ripped off the car in terms of the tyre. Can't say there's bodywork damage from before. I think they've just had a blowout and it's damaged all the bodywork around. Maybe. Just got to get through Tiergarten, but having had a race where they ran at the very tail end of the top 10, but way clear of their opposition, limping over the line, that won't polish out, but a class victory and a really strong run for them.
It is a class victory, but I think they'll be a bit frustrated with a 14th place finish overall.
Oh yeah, suddenly lost 2 places on that final lap, but they did make it to the line. In fact, not a great deal ahead of the KTM Crossbows that went on to win the Cup X class.
Yeah, so the top 11 all SP9 cars and a combination of the all pro lineups and the pro AMs. Obviously 28, 15 for all pros, as well as the 911 car. The 26 is a pro. So the best pro am car remained the 7 Black Falcon entry, despite losing an overall position on the final lap, the final run to the line indeed. They do win the Pro-Am element of SP9 and actually finish a full lap ahead of everybody else. Cup 2 going the way of the number 1 car of Christopher Mies, rather Alexander Mies, I should say, brother, and Tim Shearbath, Steve Yantz winning Cup 2 for the Gigaspeed team Get Speed Performance crew. SP7 we talked about was the 62 car, despite the late puncture, and Cup X I've mentioned as well. SPX, would you believe, won by car 55 in the end, so that Renault dropped to, well, Where did we have him initially?
116th was the highest position I saw next to his name. Could have lost more. That might have been the end of the lap after his pit stop that he came through.
And then it's just been fascinating to watch him work his way up through the mid-70s, then drop back to 101st place because of a pit stop, back up to 25th position, and then slip back down again, and then finally rise to 15th overall and a class victory. And SPX does have a fair few cars in it, 5 in total, and it's kept its head above water there. But really, the 55 Renault RS01 wants to be in the thick of it in SP9, so may well look back on this race with some disappointment. So that's the way that SPX went. SP8 won by the 139 Ferrari 458, despite late drama for that car. 139 beating to the line the 126 car. 126 being the Conrad Motorsport Porsche 991 Cup car of Matthias Hunterauch and Hannes Plesser, together with Dr. Michael Krybora. In other classes, where did we get to? SP8, so the next one will be Cup 3, and that was won in the end by the 940 car. So Adam Osika and Fabian Schiller, they were dueling it out with 979 throughout the race. That in the end, 940 finished ahead, and they finished 21st and 22nd overall. So that was very tight as well, as it was throughout the race. TCR, we didn't mention a great deal about, I have to admit, throughout the race, but 823 takes the victory. That is the Kissling Motorsport Opel Astra TCR. We had Golfs in there. We had the 801 car as well, which is an Audi RS3 LMS. I think that was the one trailing a bit of damage towards the end of the race, but good entry from TCR this time around. 6 cars and set to improve through the rest of the year. And Cup 5 won by Bonk Motorsport. That's the BMW M235i Racing Cup division, with 16 cars this weekend. 691 winning it for Bonk, ahead of 694, and the treble 6 car did get the measure of 679. We saw them dueling for the remainder of, I think it was the last 2 laps. They were more or less inseparable, and treble 6 getting the judgment. Anybody else we owe you as far as the class victories are concerned? We've done Cup 5, SP7, H4 of a 3-car field. It was the 609 car that took victory in H4, which is the Porsche 911 GT3 of Wolfgang Destry, Oleg Kvitka and Edgar Solovsky. So well done to those guys. And I could go on, frankly.
You got SP6 next.
SP6, radio, hang on.
I can tell you that's the VLN Specials class, 3,000cc to 3,500.
It was won by car 202.
The familiar racing Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car.
Excellent.
David Ackerman, Karsten Velschar and Cyber Volta.
SP3 had 7 cars in it, and car 292 took victory in SP3, which is the Subaru BRZ, which looks very much like a Toyota GT86. And Tim Schrick, the lone driver in that Scooby, so he worked very, very hard. But here are the overall results after 4 hours and 2 minutes. 2 Audis topping the results, with the Land Motorsport Audi number 28 winning from the Phoenix Audi by 16.5 seconds, near enough. Then the number 4 Porsche from Falcon Motorsport and the 911 Porsche. Question of what might have been had they been on the same strategy of the 3 cars ahead of it.
And then 5th and 6th place changed in the final sector of the final lap, and the gap between the 26 Muka Motorsport AMG Mercedes and the 7 Black Falcon car, just over half a second on the line, galling for the 7 crew, but Eduardo Mortara made it count right at the end. And then the one and only BMW M6 at the front end of the field in 7th place overall, still on the lead lap. And then we went back to Mante Racing for their 12 Porsche in 8th place, the 31 Fricadelli Racing Porsche in 9th, and the 10th place overall eventually listed as the number 55 Renault, whereas to my timing screen that finished in 15th place. But interesting one right at the end.
That may be a top 10 for SP9 rather than overall.
Yeah, but that's SPX, the
That doesn't make sense then, does it?
Doesn't make sense, because we thought it was the Steve Smith but Sven Muller driven 59 Mante Racing Porsche that in fact chased our race leader over the line, but listed as being a lap down. So I can't quite get my head around that one. Maybe the Renault RS01 has been handed back a lap that it didn't know it had lost. Perhaps.
That shall remain a mystery, at least for now. But
Renault... It was Audi's coming to the fore, which was the story. The Porsches and Audis looked very strong. Mercedes couldn't live with them in that battle, but it really was the story. One slow pit stop, held back the 27 Audi that started from 8th on the grid, but they worked their way to the front, and such a strong driver pairing, Conor De Filippi and Robin Freitz, they brought home the bacon.
There is the 59 car finishing just outside the top 10 with the 44 Mercedes. That's the GT3 spec car finishing 12th ahead of a couple of Porsche Cup cars and the best of the KTM crossbows breaking into the top 15. It's a strange old timing or results sheet that we're being shown on our screen, because it doesn't quite tally with our timing screens,
the only
but some adjustment maybe have been made.
Yeah, 15th place up to 10th and maybe given a lap back. Maybe they failed to count one. That's why it fell as low as 116th, which I must be honest, I thought it hadn't fallen that far. But in the early stages of race with 150 odd cars in it, one slip up and a half a lap limping back to the pits, you of course could lose that many places. But for now, there's no debate about who won the race. It was the 28 Audi from Monteplas by Land Motorsport, getting ahead and actually eventually easily beating the Phoenix Racing example, the white and blue example of Frank Stippler and Nikolai Moller-Madsen. But in the end, it was a new Audi team winning this year. They've already won the Nürburgring 24 hours, but in the VLN, they've drawn their first blood in round 6. Next race in the championship in 3 weeks' time at, well, of course, the Nürburgring Nordschleife.
Yeah, so that's one to look forward to. We have 3 races to go of a 9-race season, and the races come thick and fast, as you say. 3 weeks' time for the 57th running of the ADAC Reinholders Langstreckenrennen, and then we have over the weekend of the 7th of October, race 8 of 9, and then completing the season 2 weeks later for the 42nd edition of the DMV Münsterland-Pokal, and then the end of season awards on the 25th of November. I was always confusing that for much of the earlier season.
Another round.
As another round, but it's not, because I've done the translations. And that is that's the end of season awards dinner on the 25th of November. So a 9-race season. We're bringing you all of the various VLN races right here live on, well, in this instance, RSL Extra, because we're so busy over on radiolemans.com. And as we wind up our broadcast here on RSL Extra and our VLN coverage, don't forget that you can head straight over to radiolemans.com for continued coverage of the Barcelona 24 hours, a pure touring car event, as it kind of always was historically, and that continues on till 1 p.m. or till 11 a.m. sorry, tomorrow afternoon UK time, midday in Spain. Then you can get some sleep at the end of that and rejoin us here on RSL Extra for our live coverage of the Mexico round of the World Endurance Championship. The podium presentations are taking place, though, now, by the way. And first of all, to the third step of the podium go Martin Ragginger and his teammate.
Klaus Bachler, the shorter figure on the right-hand side of the podium. And applause all round for the team that finished in second place, which is Frank Stippler, but leading him up, Nikolai Moller-Madsen, to go across to shake hands with their rivals. So it was Audi sticking 1 on Porsche, but more to the point, it was Audi sticking 2 on Porsche, because, of course, the winning car, the winning combination, Monteplas by Land Motorsport, will be coming out any moment now. I'm sure there'll be applause aplenty, as out will come Conor De Filippi, leading the way, the American racer, and tucked in behind Robin Freitz, who may even just about break into a smile there. Yes, another good job for a very, very busy racing driver. The team's had the form, but now they get their first VLN victory of the year, and with it, of course, great big garlands, gold covered garlands with the red, black and yellow national flag of Germany on. In fact, Robin Freitz making a bit of a mess of it, trying to stick it over his head with ribbons everywhere. And again, the gentlemanly handshakes and applause from Frank Stippler, Etco up on the podium. These podiums, obviously with so many classes, Johnny, run deep into the night, the podium celebrations, class after class. But the main class, the SP9 class, the predominant drivers in the fastest cars up on the podium.
But it's nice for Robin Freins because he wasn't part of the quartet that won the Nürburgring 24 hours earlier on this year. Connor was with Chris Mies, Marcus Winkelhock and Kelvin van der Linde, the South African driver. But Robin Freins may well have been part of that race. I think he was possibly in a GT3 elsewhere, but wasn't part of the Land Motorsport and the Monteplast organisation. They came so close, of course, to throwing that race away as there was a late race downpour. They were never quite sure which tyres to be on, but a little bit of a twist of luck presented the race in the end to the Monteplast crew. And congratulations to Conor De Filippi, who will know what it's like to stand on the top step of that podium, sharing the moment with Robin Freins. Congratulations again to Frank Stippler and to his teammates Nikolai Moller-Madsen, and also to Martin Raginger and Klaus Bachler. As you say, we've got so many more podia to take place. We won't be sticking around for all of those here on RSL Extra, but a chance for Bruce and I to get a little bit of a breather now. But we are back on later on this evening at 1:45 for our coverage of qualifying for the World Endurance Championship in Mexico. The calendar, rather the schedule, has been open to a little bit of adjustment purely because of so much wet weather in Mexico. I think the weather has maybe calmed to an extent now, and we're still on course then for the schedule, which is displayed on the radiolemans.co website. 11:45 UK time through till about 1:45 tomorrow morning, which will be the FIA World Endurance Championship qualifying, and we look forward to our race then tomorrow from 5:30 UK time for a 6 o'clock start. We'll do the full countdown to green, the race coverage from 6 p.m. through till midnight, and post-race tech, which will take us through till about midnight midnight on Monday morning. You cannot say that we've not got everything covered here, and if you're stuck for any motorsport action, as I say, head across to radiolemans.com for continued coverage of the Barcelona 24-hour race as part of the Creventic Run 24-hour series. My thanks to Bruce Jones. This is Johnny Palmer signing off, hoping that you've enjoyed the VLN action as much as we have. There are just 3 races to go, and the next VLN comes here on RSL Extra in 3 weeks' time. Bye for now.
Bacon roll now.
Nicht mehr viel zu wünschen übrig gelassen hat. Hier kommt der Champion.